Welcome back to Combating Microaggressions. How can I help? We'll now look at examples of microaggressions and macroaggressions from the perspective of being an ally. The examples in this micro course look at systemic and institutional bias and inequity. This is the first example. Who are the clients I work with? Who aren't I working with? Can I trust my powers of observation to show me the full picture? What sort of barriers could people, especially those from marginalized communities, have in accessing my services? How are people accessing my services from the first contact to arriving at my office? The first step the clinician undertakes is to examine demographics and proportionality. Do the demographics of her caseload reflect the demographics of the people living in the community? Or are there racial and cultural groups who are underrepresented or overrepresented on her caseload? In addition to the U.S. Census Bureau website, here are resources clinicians can use to compare the demographics of their communities with the demographics of their caseloads. Our clinician has compared the demographics of community and work and has determined that bilingual speakers are overrepresented on her caseload. The next step is for this SLP to be an ally for bilingual speakers. She determines that she's using tests that were normed only on monolingual speakers, or were normed with fewer than a representative number of speakers of the languages in her clients' communities. She explored incorporating the evidence-based practice of using dynamic assessment as an alternative to relying solely on standardized tests, which reduced this overrepresentation. Being an ally who wanted to address the overrepresentation of bilingual speakers on SLP's caseloads, she became an advocate for bilingual speakers across her school district. Here is a second example. My Black colleague confided to me that she's frustrated that a white colleague who just finished her fellowship year was asked to supervise a student, while she, who has been working there for 5 years, has not been given that opportunity. She expressed this as a pattern of being overlooked because of her race. I hadn't noticed until now. Now that this reoccurring slight within his work setting has brought this to his attention, this SLP becomes an ally. On one hand, this situation is a microaggression that has offended an African American colleague. This is a macroaggression as well, because on the institutional level, there is no policy that delineates the qualifications for supervising student clinicians. Being an ally, the SLP advocated for a policy that brought equity to the workplace. Lastly, this audiologist is interested in a policy on microaggressions in the workplace. This is what he discovered. We don't have a policy. On my team, we share our similarities and celebrate our differences. We're committed to the idea that all staff deserve dignity and respect. Given that, how can I help establish a policy on microaggressions? This slide shows the aspects that our audiologist thinks are important for a meaningful and impactful policy on microaggressions. What are some of the questions we should think about when developing them? What happens when someone says something inappropriate? Are consequences clear? Do managers have the tools to support the policy? What else? This ally is taking the lead and is immediately asking for input from others, particularly the BIPOC staff, who will be the beneficiaries of a workplace policy on microaggressions. One way to eliminate microaggressions in the workplace is for there to be a macro-level response, as in this example, the establishment of a workplace policy on microaggressions for the institution. We've explored microaggression and macroaggression and the ally and reviewed some examples. The next activities are your turn to plan, practice, and reflect.